Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Shy with Startup CEOs. I'm joined by the amazing Eve Halimi today, and she is the co-founder of Air. See, you got to tell me how I should pronounce this, because I've done this wrong before, and I think you didn't correct me. I say it as
okay,
Alinea.
everyone.
How do you say it?
I can't say it. No. Alinea.
Alinea. Okay, cool. Awesome. So it's a Gen Z investing app that's powered by sort of social insights and like insights into the impact reports of the companies, the CEOs, and like sort of evaluating all of those things on a more holistic level, I guess, as opposed to just looking at some numbers and making an investment decision when you're super young. So thank you so much, Eve, for joining us. How are you doing today?
Great, thank you. Excited to be chatting with you today, Joel.
Yeah, awesome. So obviously you're in a bit of a crowded space, like, super competitive, cutthroat, Robinhood, Webull, Public, like all of these players are in that space. How do you feel about that? As a founder, and how do you deal with, I guess, people like me who keep asking you stuff like this?
Yeah, I mean, our biggest motivation to do this, the reason we wake up every day and we work on Linea is because we really want to change the investing culture out there. We've seen too many of our friends lose so much money, invest in a non-responsible manner. And so that's why Linea exists. Linea is here to help you invest responsibly in the stock market. And that's why our product is focused on stacks. Stacks are bundles of stocks. They help you create low-cost, diversified, long-term portfolios and make you a better investor overall. That's one part of it. The second part of it is that we're really focused on helping you invest with your values.
Right. So I think that's great in the sense of the focus is not on retail trading necessarily, but also on wealth generation and like a long-term outlook. I think that's great. Especially with like the rising, trends we see in people investing in like Dogecoin or like AMC or like GameStop, whatever. You can have like your own views on that, but just in general, I think it's better to have a longer view outlook on stocks and stuff. So obviously you went through Y-Combinator, and that's a super competitive accelerator to get into and things like that. Tell us about the journey there, because I've heard several founders talk about how they got in and stuff like that. But how did it lead up to that application? Like, you know what I mean? Like team forming and, the problem discovery and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, application is pretty standard. It's kind of like how you apply for college. Very similar. And then you get invited to an interview. You have 10 minutes to pitch. If they like you, they'll ask you for a follow-up where you either show a demo of your product or answer a few more questions, and then they'll decide if you're in or not. And so for us, it was a very quick process. We were notified at I think 2 a.m. on a Thursday, and they told us we had 24 hours to quit our jobs and kind of be full-time to be a part of Y-Combinator. And then the process was great. I mean, what Y-Combinator teaches you really is talk to your customers, launch fast, learn and reiterate, and that's what we've been doing since.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of also what I wanted to ask you about the the beta piece, and you've already sort of put out the waitlist like a bunch of months ago, and like obviously your learnings in that process. Tell me about like how you think about that iteration that you're talking about, right? What do you focus on putting out first, and then how do you keep going back at it again?
Yeah, so our first beta version essentially had a very small amount of offerings, equity offerings. Then we started expanding. We started just really listening and prioritizing our product roadmap based on what the customers wanted. So there's a lot of new features actually that are coming up in the next few weeks, which the whole team is really excited about. But all of that has been based on hundreds of customer interviews.
Right. And I think that's a common theme across Y-Combinator founders. I'm not sure if you know Ahana from Clear, but I was talking to her and she had a very similar view on sort of user interviews and things like that. But yeah, she was she did 8 user interviews in a day or something like that for a week straight when Y-Com told her to go change your idea and come back within 1 week or something. And yeah, definitely a common theme now that I see with Y-Com founders. So In terms of Gen Z investing, you obviously mentioned that they're definitely more values driven and things like that. What are the other like things that you're seeing in the portfolios of Gen Z investors today? What are like? I mean, the adults would have. I mean, the adults rather the older folk would have like gold in their portfolio as a safety hedge kind of a thing, and then just about everything else. Some in high growth and some in medium. So what do you feel like that portfolio looks like today for the Gen Z investor?
I feel like it will. So a lot of them will have. They'll have a mix of a clean energy stack, a blockchain stack, some Tesla here and there. But it's really, they're investing based on the products they like, based on the industries that they care about, and they see kind of doing well over the next few years. But also aligning with their values. So empowering minorities is a stack we offer on Alinea, and that's been a really popular one. Essentially, it's a mix of all these things.
Right. Fair enough. And when you think
but I would say also on top of the ways that Gen Zs are constructing their portfolios, they're also much more likely to be social. So Public has done a really good step at kind of being the first to offer social investing, and I really feel like that trend is going to continue and grow in this next wave of retail investing.
Yeah, for sure. And you see the likes of like Robinhood and things like that tapping into that social investing space, or not so much?
I think it's very hard for a company like Robinhood to start. So I don't know if you saw, but in February of 2020, Robinhood had actually released a blog article to their community saying that they were going to launch a sort of public social feature on their app, and they actually never ended up releasing it. And it's because Robinhood has so many steps and such a bureaucratic system to get anything done these days that it's very hard for them to change things.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And I don't see them changing.
Definitely. And sort of on product market fit and things like that, obviously it's something that again, that's religiously taught at YC Startup School and stuff like that. You have to just strip everything down and like go for PMF and all this kind of stuff. So how do you look at like the metrics in terms of like what is it that will sort of determine to you that you've achieved product market fit, and how are you working towards that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, some of the KPIs we're really tracking in terms of data, talking data, and then I'll talk long term, but data first. It's looking at things like funded accounts. So how many people are trusting Alinea, creating an account with us and coming and putting in money essentially. The second one is active users. So monthly active users, people that are coming back to the app, checking in on the app at least a few times a month. And then just how many times people are coming back and also re-interacting with the app. So not only if they've added money once, but if they've come back and reinvested time and also money. So those are the three biggest ones that we're kind of assessing right now. But long-term success for us would be to have a whole new generation of investors kind of use Alinea and learn more about investing and about constructing a good portfolio long term.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And on the retention piece and stuff like that, I think when you try to integrate like the social piece to investing as well, it's super important to monitor that kind of stuff as well for anyone that's looking to build a social app or anything like that. And now when we think about, I think we were talking about this before we started recording, like pivots and stuff like that, and you were saying that we haven't had any yet, but you're sort of a young, ambitious group of people who have amazing ideas all the time. How do you sort of like weigh up, like, when someone comes up with a team and goes like, hey, I've got this idea, maybe we could do this and that could generate us this and this. How do you weigh up what's a good pivot and like what's a bad one for you?
So we try to keep consistent with what our values are, with what our, like, we know why we started this essentially and what we want long term. That's never going to leave. Then pivoting certain things on the product. So like really focusing on stacks for us, like those are okay. I mean, there are new features that are coming up that we've definitely pivoted and had long discussions as a team as to whether we would implement them. But we really address pivots based on if the hundreds of customers have asked for these kinds of features.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. And like, where I'm coming from in this respect is like, we're trying to find whether we should go for a revenue generating mechanism right now, or whether we should, hang in there in the sheds and like wait for the, VC funding kind of thing to come through. And it's sometimes a difficult juggle because like you're trying to see where your stream of income is coming from, whether you should still continue sort of working part-time while building and stuff like that. And I guess the pivot is not so driven by the customer piece. So maybe the best thing to do in that sense would be to launch a beta and see kind of like what happens and then kind of decide from there, right? Yeah. And sort of obviously
it's the best thing you can do. Just get something out there.
Yeah. And you went to Colombia, and tell me about sort of like how, if that helped you at all in terms of like what you're doing right now. That sort of journey and like how they contributed to your entrepreneurial.
In terms of learning about investing and learning about how to build a startup, not at all.
Yeah.
But in terms of our network, our team today, definitely. So like my co-founder, Anam, who I started this with, who's my co-CEO, I met her at Barnard during our senior year. So without knowing her, we would have never really started this. And then our entire team, Dan, who's our CTO, is also Colombia. He was in our year, as well as Ari and Mahir, who are founding engineers, also went to Colombia. So Colombia was definitely helpful for our network.
Yeah, awesome. And what about Anam made you decide that, like, she's the one that you can start this company with, as opposed to everyone else that is also supposedly great for Colombia? Yeah.
It's weird to say, but it's kind of like relationships. There's the romantic relationships and there's the business relationships, and it's the same kind of feeling. It's you have to see yourself working with that, wanting to work with that person 24/7.
Yeah.
Basically seeing that person complete different sides that you don't have. And also, I think the last big part is having that person really push you and challenge you. If you're working with someone that just makes you comfortable, that you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And thinking about, I think when I first reached out to you, I was like applying to Y-Combinator, and like I was like, Eve, gotta help a brother out, like put a slide a recommendation in for us or something like that. But now we're back in that stage, I guess, and like sort of juggling that versus like pre-seed and stuff. When you're raising money for a pre-seed round, what is it that you sort of tell investors that, gets them excited to the extent that they go ahead and back you, right? And like what you can't show, do you show like milestones, or do you show like how much is going to be used for this? Like, what do you think about in that ask slide? What do they get excited about?
I think for especially pre-seed and even in your seed, you just are selling a vision. You're selling a vision and you're selling yourself. Like you have to show the investors why you're the right person to be building your company, and why your company is going to be the next big thing in that kind of industry. So more than the numbers or showing you can put that in slides, but that doesn't really matter to the investor. They're going to bet on who you are and if they see any value in that business. No,
that makes sense. And when you did eventually raise that round, and now you've gone on to raise $2.1 million, it's crazy, right? Like, how do you think about hiring now? Because it's a little bit different than when you were incentivizing people with equity or whatever it is. And, you're sort of competing in markets where it's super expensive to pay someone like NYC and like SF or whatever it is. So how do you, go about that hiring process now? What do you think about when you have to like compete with the likes of other software giants and things like that?
Yeah, you'll actually notice that a lot of people in our generation don't necessarily want to work at the big Facebooks, FANGs. Essentially, they'd rather go and work at startups. So I think now more than ever, it's easier to get young talent. The way we built out our team right now, we're no longer hiring actually, because Dan, our CTO, has done such a good job at recruiting great people. But we really just hired from, and that's a YC advice as well. Go to your network and go see who you have as a secondary connection and kind of hire from there. So go to people you went to school with, and find people that were in the same industry and kind of hire them, and they'll bring on more people. It's better to do it that way than to, especially at the beginning when you're hiring your first 20 employees, than to kind of randomly hire on the internet.
Yeah, I think that definitely that sort of like mutual introduction piece definitely helps. And, with respect to what advice you would give for, I guess, someone who is a Gen Z entrepreneur, which there are a lot of these days. So like, what can they do differently to stand out, and what do they need to do right to be amongst, the likes of Alinea and stuff like that?
It's very sweet. I think it's, and my co-founder says this a lot, which I like. It's about the little steps. It's not about doing success. I mean, a company doesn't just happen overnight. Like you have to, and Hollywood's done a good job at showcasing that with Facebook and all of those. But it takes a while to get to where you want to be. Like from ideation, where we were at senior year, to where we are today, it's been a 2-year process of just small steps, of figuring things out, figuring what alley we wanted to go to, rerouting, rebuilding, reworking things. And so the best way to learn is by doing, and you just have to kind of take these small steps and continue going. And best advice I have is just to continue. Just perseverance is everything. At some point, something good will come along.
Yeah, I think it's super easy to give up in this space. Like every day, it's like you said, the small steps sometimes don't, like you can't see it in the grander scheme of things, and therefore it's a bit of a struggle. But like, yeah, I think perseverance is an important piece, and like a lot of people give up. So you just need to be the person that does it, and go for it in that sense. What's next for Alinea, and like what can we expect to see from you guys? What are you excited about for the next few months?
I'm excited about all our product updates that are coming out. I think the app we launched the app in March, but it's still been kind of a beta. It really hasn't resembled what we want it to look like. And so I think in the upcoming months, it's going to start looking like the product we want it to be. So that's very exciting. We have recruited the right team, so we're really excited about that. But now, it's about kind of getting the right product out the door and marketing it, and marketing it to the right people. So we'll start doing some new marketing channels on TikTok, on the other social medias, but that's what we're looking forward to in the upcoming weeks and months.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any particular ones that you'd like to share with us, maybe? You don't have to.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Well, we're so something that we realized after talking to our customers is that we had to build a kind of social network to Alinea, and that's what's coming out very soon. So there's going to be social profiles, especially because I know you're in that world. You get it. So definitely want to share that with you. So people will be able to kind of go on Alinea, follow each other, but also kind of copy their other people's portfolios and investment strategies. We're also coming up with another feature we're really excited about, which is create your own stack, where people will be able to create their own bundles of stocks and
That's so cool. I would love to do that. Like, as in, first of all, the idea of like, I guess, mimicking the portfolio of someone who's potentially better at you, better than you at this sort of like investing thing. That's number one. And number two, creating your own stack. I think that's cool. First of all, like you've made an index fund seem like it's super cool by calling it stack. So I like that. And it's just generally like, super exciting to see where Alinea goes in the next few months. If you're ever out in the UK looking for like regulatory approval, don't hit me up. I know nobody. But would definitely love to see Alinea out here. And I'm sure a lot of people would love to get started investing as well. Thank you so much, Eve, for taking the time. It's been a pleasure and sort of like really exciting to sort of hear where Alinea is going. I can't wait to see all of this stuff, and I'm glad I get to chat with you one-on-one as opposed to just reading another TechCrunch article. Super great to hear from you. Hope you have a good one.
Thank you so much. Really appreciated the time.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.